Hi folks, we are Sophie and Philippe, two professional chefs and regenerative farmers. Currently, we're setting up our second regenerative farm in Central Portugal, where we grow food for our local community and share our knowledge both on the land and in the kitchen. On this channel, we take you along on the farm's development and we show you how we grow, cook and preserve nutrient-dense, regeneratively grown, delicious food. In a time where the food we're eating is literally killing us, the most powerful and impactful action one could take is to consume nutrient-dense, regeneratively grown, clean food. Let's grow it, let's cook it, let's do it. Hi folks, and welcome back. I apologize for publishing this video a little later than normal. This past week was very much in the sentiment of spring, which means too much to do and too little time to do it. So unfortunately, we didn't manage to shove all our action into a 1 week time span and we were a little bit delayed. Hope you can forgive us. In this week's episode, we're going to go onto the farm and I'm going to give you all the updates on our plant growth and on some other developments on the farm, some sheep action, and of course we're going to get into that kitchen and cook something delicious. For those people out there that were interested in seeing the full conversation between Tanya and myself, I'll be publishing a link to that video in next week's newsletter, so be sure to expect an email with a link to that direct conversation. And if you haven't subscribed yet to our newsletter, then I'll leave a link below so that you can get access. There are some more juicy things I want to discuss, but I'll do that at the end of this episode. For now, let's go into the farm and check out what's what. Today is the day that I'm going to share my biggest insecurity with you all, and we're also going to plant some tomatoes. Here they are, the white mom legs with these beautiful green crocks. These white mom legs really needed some sun, and the determinate tomatoes really needed to get planted. So we headed over to our nursery where we still have our different bean types, a backup batch of red peppers, our determinate tomatoes, lavender from seed, and melons growing. Just like we dug out our aubergines and peppers and our salad tomatoes to transplant, Philippe started digging out our determinate tomatoes. The plants are looking strong and healthy and came out very easily. This variety is called Mauro Rosso, and the plant grows into a bushy low plant of which the fruit ripens all around the same time. These tomatoes are perfect for sauce making. We transplanted them into beds Philippe had prepped with some Epsom salt, our fermented cow manure and some finished compost. Later that evening, I started the week by harvesting the last 2 beds of potatoes that had been attacked by the Alternaria fungus. This fungus also attacks the tubers if left too long, and to prevent any more yield loss and because we want to make better use now of this bed, we decided to harvest them completely. The next morning, it was time to say goodbye to our broad bean crop. These broad beans are done. We've harvested them all. There's a few of them left in the bed, but I'm not going to harvest them anymore. We're going to discontinue them, so I'm going to chop them down by the stem, by the root I mean, and then we're going to just drop them down and then we'll plant straight into this bed again. Maybe do a little bit of weeding if that's necessary. When the heat starts to come, peas and broad beans are the first crops that start to dry out. And that's how you know it's time for them to go. Unless, of course, you want to save them for dry storing. My sister was visiting and I harvested a substantial amount of carrots, leeks and onions to make a batch of DIY stock cubes. We have a full episode up on how to make these, so if you want to make preservative-free homemade stock cubes, be sure to check out that episode. After some time in the freezer, I packed them up individually and popped them back into the freezer where they will keep. While we were still busy in the kitchen, Philippe prepped the ditch for our water and electricity access to our soon-to-be cooling area. 2 weeks ago, our insulated cooling container arrived and was installed. The ground is very rocky here, so Philippe had to work quite hard to penetrate it, but he managed to dig a ditch in order to lay the pipes. Later, Daniel came over and he installed the air conditioning, which will be attached to the coolbot in order to cool the space. Philippe then mixed up some more cement to fix some of the damaged spots that were created when installing the container with the heavy machinery. Now we are waiting for the installation of the roof to move forward with this project. I can't wait, and it's been very hard looking at all this mess laying around the house, but I'm really trying to keep cool. A few days later, the broad beans look like this. We're going to transplant some seedlings straight into this bed and leave the broad beans there for mulch, which in this scorching heat is a great idea, as covering the ground as much as possible is best. The pumpkin patch is looking better each day, and so are the pepper and aubergine plants. They are even starting to make fruits already. The fennel is starting to mature, and the chard, besides a little slug damage, is looking spectacular. The last koolrabis are now ready for harvest, and the artichokes the girls and I planted are huge. The next generation of leeks is on the way, and of course the pièce de la résistance is to be found in the tunnel. Alright, so the tunnel is looking great, the cucumbers are looking beautiful. We're growing a specific variety that we're new to this year, and it has a super high yield. They're quite expensive, these seeds, but I think it's very much worth the investment because they're giving such consistent, beautiful cucumbers, and the plant is just making tons of them. So that's wonderful. On the left here you can tell that we're starting to almost finished with our carrot harvest from this bed. We have interplanted the red peppers, so they are also growing strong, and I've seen some first fruits appear, so that's exciting. And then on our right side, of course, we have tomatoes in the beginning of June, so I'm very pleased with that. The first red ones are appearing. We're gonna have a nice tomato salad soon. Soon we'll be putting those in the box as well. And we have our lettuces growing at the bottom of them. All in all, a very productive and wonderful tunnel experience. So the determinate tomatoes have really caught on, and they've grown so much in just about 4 or 5 days. They really are a force to be reckoned with. This plant is super strong. Our courgettes are also abundantly producing. Courgettes are always semi-problematic for that reason. You need to go here every other day and harvest what's ripe, because otherwise, before you know it, you've got these huge sea monsters, I like to call them. I don't know why I do that. They have nothing to do with the sea. They just remind me of some sort of huge creature, and I love to call them sea monsters. But yeah, they're looking great. We've got a light variety, we've got a darker variety, and they're looking very good. We're going to definitely pop in a second generation of this. The wild border is a success. All in all, the garden is going very well, and so are the veggie box sales. I harvested my first batch of green peppers, which I stored in the freezer to make green curries in the future, and I transplanted some very scrunchy looking leftover cabbage seedlings into the broad bean bed to see how they progress. It's very hot, but I mean very, very hot. It's 38 degrees out. And I'm going to take you guys down to where the sheep are, because they must also be very, very hot, and they are about to be saved because we're going to shear them. So let's go and shear some sheep. This year our neighbors also brought over their sheep to be shorn at our barn in order to make the workflow more efficient for our shearer. The shearer worked fast and carefully manscaped our ram, which must have been a nerve-wracking experience for him, I imagine. After the shearing session, our sheep and ram looked refreshed and happy with their new look. Our neighbors brought back their sheep with our trailer, the shearer left, and Philippe quickly mucked the wool out of the stable to save for future use. In a world where we would have more time, I would love to use the wool in order to make things with it, such as felt or actual wool to knit with, but that is an objective that is unrealistic at this time, so we are using it for something else on the farm this year. Wool is very useful to put on your soil as mulch. Now in our market garden beds we would not quickly add this, as it would prevent fast and efficient turnover of the beds. But for our tree crops, this nitrogen-rich material, which will release slowly over time, will be great at both protecting the soil as well as suppressing weeds and feeding our tree systems. So that is exactly what we plan to do. Now it was really time to eat something. So what we're making today is a savory fresh cheese pie. For that we're using 1 whole fresh cheese, 8 fresh eggs, we're using some fresh oregano, some whole grain organic flour, another 2 handfuls of breadcrumbs, a dollop of fresh butter, and then some black peppercorns, 2 of these fresh stock cubes. I'm going to use a cake tin here, a big mixing bowl, and a whisk. Start off by greasing the baking pan super generously. Add 2 tablespoons of dried oregano to the breadcrumbs and mix in 2 tablespoons of the whole grain flour. Stir this around and then dust your pan with it. Leave the excess in the bottom of the pan and pop it into the fridge until you need it. In the large mixing bowl, crumble 1 kilogram of fresh cheese and then crack 8 fresh eggs into the cheese. Add in 1 tablespoon of coarsely ground pepper, another 3 tablespoons of flour, 1 of your DIY stock cubes, and blend briefly with a wand blender to make sure the cube and flour are finely mixed in. Then whisk with a hand whisk to prevent the breaking up of all the cheese. Taste to see if it needs another stock cube. This depends on your salt preference. I added a second one before adding in the last ingredient, which is 1 cup of full fat milk. After a quick cleanup, take out your pan and now gently pour in the mixture. Move the pie into the preheated oven and bake it for 36 minutes at 160 degrees Celsius or until golden brown and no longer liquid in the middle. Take it out to cool down in the pan and move on to making the salad. Wash your lettuce, gather some fresh herbs from the garden and maybe, if you have them, some edible flowers. Now chop up whatever crunchy veg you have in the garden. I love adding some fruit to the mix like apple or oranges. Mix this all together and dress with a generous amount of olive oil, apple cider vinegar and, of course, a bit of salt. The pie is best served lukewarm or cold. Have your better half or whatever other wonderful company you have set the table for you and you are now ready to enjoy this protein-rich, nutrient-dense delight. Bon appétit! That concludes the part of our episode where we give you all our updates and we cook something delicious together. Now let's get into some more juicy bits. I would very much like to get some input from you, the viewer, in what you thought about our farm series. We have 1 more episode coming up that will be published next week. So that's Arraio de Seixo. It's going to be also a very good episode. And that then concludes our farm visit series. I have the feeling everybody enjoyed it. We definitely enjoyed making it. And now my question to you becomes, what is it that you would like to see as a viewer on our channel? What would you like to get more of? So should we do maybe a second part of this farm series? Is that something that we're interested in? I personally also very much would enjoy doing sort of a podcast style episodes with interesting players in the regenerative space, both in the culinary field as well as the agricultural field, and just discuss these bigger questions around regeneration and around the future of food and the future of farming. So let me know what you guys think, because I'm very interested, and maybe there are other ideas out there. Recommend farms or places to visit. That's also very much appreciated. Yeah, very much looking forward to what's to come and sharing that journey with you. See you on next week's episode. The Farming Chefs, peace out.